his contribution in terms of his teachings so that we can understand what Nichiren Daishonin's contribution is to his teachings. So basically Shakyamuni attained enlightenment in India when he was about 30 years old, and then he spent most of his life many teachings as he traveled through India. And these teachings, initially he tried to teach his own enlightenment, but he realized people were not able to comprehend what he was talking about. So then what he did is he did what's called provisional teachings. He, depending on where he went, he found teachings that would help people right there and then, and that's what he sort of gave. That's why there's many, many teachings. But all these teachings are kind of preached according to people's capacity, meaning what they could understand at the time. And then towards the end of his life, he said, okay, now the next teaching I'm going to expound is called the Lotus Sutra. And that teaching is based on not based on people's capacity, but based on his own enlightenment. So in a way, so he says, that teaching is basically a teaching that accords with the mind of the Buddha, basically with his own mind, his own enlightenment. So in a way, he said, all the other teachings I've preached before are kind of a stepping stone to this teaching, and people may not be able to understand it right now, but in the future, someone will come along and sort of, in a sense, finish it off. But also in the future, a time will come called the latter day of the law, because Buddhism divides time in three zones: the former, the middle, and the latter. This is the latter day of the law because it's a time that's characterized by great turmoil. And he said in those times, at that time, that teaching will become, in a sense, relevant. And that brings us to Japan about 700 years ago, when Nichiren Daishonin sort of appeared and was born. So Shakyamuni was, prince, and he renounced this amazingly sort of easy life he could have had in order to seek enlightenment. Nichiren Daishonin was totally the opposite. He was the poorest of the poor. He was born to a fisherman's family, which was in Japan about as low as you could go socially in those days. And he went to, he got an education by joining the priesthood, the local priesthood, as many people did in those days. So I don't want to spend today too much. We can have lots of questions after about anything to do with Nichiren Daishonin's life or Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, but I don't want to dwell on all the details of his life. But the main thing I want to say is that he became a priest and studied extensively all the Buddhist teachings in Japan at the time. And his conclusion was that the enlightenment of Shakyamuni, his true intention, was actually also contained in the Lotus Sutra. What Shakyamuni didn't mention, in a way, in the Lotus Sutra, he really explained what enlightenment is about, but he doesn't really explain clearly how you can attain that enlightenment. And that's what Nichiren Daishonin did. Basically, Nichiren Daishonin explained that, revealed for the very first time the law of life as being Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. That was never revealed by anyone before, not Shakyamuni, not anyone. So he did that as kind of the most important sort of contribution. And the second thing that he did was to inscribe the Gonzen, which Mark's going to talk about later. And that Gonzen is basically a physical embodiment of the law of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. And the law of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is actually the law of life itself, which was never revealed before, again, which is a very sort of interesting thing. So, when he, I just want to read a quick quote from, about at the age of when he was 32, he went back to, I guess, his temple of origin. And that's when he went for the first time, after many, many years of study, back to his original temple. And as it was kind of, the custom in those days, everybody gathered to kind of hear what he had learned in a way in his travels and in his studies. And he, at that time, revealed Nam-myoho Renge Kyo and chanted Nam-myoho Renge Kyo for people for the first time. And he basically said that, that teaching of the Lotus Sutra and, his teaching, basically, of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo was, the foundation of life itself. And from that moment on, he had a very challenging life because the authorities of the time, the other sects of Buddhism of the time, all came down pretty heavy on him, basically, because they felt threatened by what he revealed. Of course, in Buddhism, and Shakyamuni in Lotus Sutra makes that clear, that everybody is absolutely equal, and everybody has this great potential of the Buddha nature. So the fact that everybody is equal didn't go down very well in Japan, in those days, because it was a very hierarchical society. And then he, when he revealed Namyo Renge Kyo, he also challenged, of course, some of those other Buddhist teachings and the power that they had with those teachings on people, because in Japan the Buddhism and religion and the state were very much linked. So that was that situation. So anyway, so when he revealed Namyo Renge Kyo, there's a writing he wrote at the time, one of his writings that is about, shortly after he revealed Namyo Renge Kyo. So I just want to read that to you. He says, "If you wish to free yourself from the sufferings of birth and death you have endured since time without beginning, and to attain without fail unsurpassed enlightenment in this lifetime, you must perceive the mystic truth that is originally inherent in all beings. This truth is Myoho Renge Kyo. Chanting Myoho Renge Kyo will therefore enable you to grasp the mystic truth innate in all life." So that's it. So after that, he spent the next 26 years, basically expounding his teachings, spreading Namyo Renge Kyo, getting many, many disciples, being persecuted as well, triumphing over all these persecutions, over these obstacles. And after 26 years, he inscribed that scroll, the Ganzen, which was his final sort of, accomplishment. And he did so when he felt that his disciples were, in a sense, strong enough to, carry the teaching once he was gone. So we can move to Namyo Renge Kyo now, which is really it's the essence of this whole practice in a way. It's what we do, why we practice. It's the qualities of Buddhahood are, courage, wisdom, compassion, and life force. So, Nichiren Daishonin basically said that to chant Namyo Renge Kyo is the cause to experience Buddhahood, to bring Buddhahood that is inherent but dormant in our lives, to actually make it, well up in our lives and become sort of apparent. So what is Namyo Renge Kyo? I guess that's the real key. And so in a very simple way, it's the mystic law of life. That's a very simple explanation. Now, if we start going into each character, we got Nam, Myo, Ho, Renge, and Kyo. And each of these characters are kind of, have multi-layered meanings. So I'm going to focus on the main ones, but they all expound principles which are universal and fundamental in nature. So the law of life really is Myoho Renge Kyo. A Nam that Nichiren Daishonin placed in front of it means to devote oneself to. So Nam Myoho Renge Kyo means to devote oneself to the mystic law. So Myoho means the mystic law. It also means, the eternal cycle of life and death. So that Myo is death and Ho is life, or Myo is the, you could say, unseen aspect of life, and Ho is the manifest aspect of life. And so, of course, as part of Myoho, the Myoho Renge Kyo, Myoho means that everything in the universe is always going through that eternal cycle of life and death. It's inescapable. Nothing can escape that law. It's, anything that is born, it has to die at some point. And everything goes through that perpetual cycle. Renge literally means lotus flower. And it symbolizes a few sort of basic concepts. The main one is cause and effect. So again, universal principle is that everything is subject to the law of cause and effect. So in whatever form that we can think of, cause and effect is always at work, even though it's not always apparent. But like for us human beings, for example, everything we do, everything we say, everything we think are all causes that have effects. In another way, because we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, we also plant a cause with that, and that as a result enables us to experience the Buddha nature. The other part of Renge is also, that the fact that cause sort of the lotus flower, it means lotus flowers. So the lotus flowers, flowers and seeds at the same time. So that sort of embodies this principle that when a cause is made, the effect is already, technically speaking, apparent. I mean, it's not necessarily apparent, but it already exists. So once a cause has been made, there will always be an effect. And again, the lotus flower signifies another thing, which is that, we often see these beautiful pictures of lotus flowers growing on these really muddy ponds. And they're actually very pure flowers, but they grow, in really kind of, I guess, dirty environments, or at least polluted from a nature point of view. And that, for us, symbolizes that, we can attain Buddhahood within the realities of life. We don't have to go to this perfect place that's free of any obstacles, anything, but that we can actually, in the realities of life, even though we're struggling and facing challenges and suffering at times, that we can actually take all that and transform it into the world of Buddhahood, same as the flower does that, as the lotus flower does that with the muddy pond. And then Kyo, the last character, means sutra or teaching. It also means vibration or sound. And that means that everything in life is connected, through sound, through vibration. So, same for us, often there's this example which I really like, where, we appear to be disconnected, but in a way it's like we're like, islands in the ocean. If you remove the water, at a deeper level, we're actually, everything's connected. Mm. So we seem unconnected, but we're all connected. And the same thing, that's us as human beings, as a society. It's us with nature, with our environment, as planets, as solar systems, as galaxies. Everything actually is connected, and everything has an influence on everything. So as a result, when we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo and we elevate our life states, we can directly influence, of course, how we feel by those revealing those 4 qualities that I mentioned before. But also we can affect our environment. And, for me, my first experience of chanting, and still today, is that, no matter what I feel inside to start with, whether I feel good or bad, let's say I feel bad, I don't feel good. And, when I go and chant, I can, through chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, raise my life condition and feel better. And as a result, I can start influencing my environment in a much more positive way. And to me, that's one of the most amazing sort of practical and pragmatic sides of chanting, is that it's not just a nice theory. Chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo actually really produces a tangible effect in our lives. So no matter what our starting point is, and I'm not saying that we go up, through life like a ladder. It's more that, sometimes we feel good, sometimes we don't. We can totally transform our inner world through chanting, and then we can affect our, environment. So I'm not sure if what I said is very clear, and I'm sorry if it's a little bit sort of, dry or sounds a bit too technical. Ask anything you want at any point, or to, if anything needs clarification or you want to add some points to what I said. I'm hoping we're going to have lots of questions later on about everything. So that's it for me. I'm passing over to my good friend Mark.
Okay, my job is to talk about the Gohanzen, and